Yesterday, California's court system, judicial system, upheld what the state of California, the people, had to say. Your thoughts on that process?
Well, I think we're at a point now where it really even goes beyond where you stand on these particular issues. When you live in a country where where your state constitution specifically says you have the right by a ballot initiative to amend your constitution, to pass statutes. Now, we don't have ballot initiative power here in Iowa, but they do in California. And it's explicitly written into their constitution. So the idea that you've got to go to your state Supreme Court to have them validate a right that exists in your state constitution. I mean, people who were yesterday praising this as a win, that's not a win. Our founders wouldn't have gone to the California State Supreme Court to get validation to do what the Constitution says. They would have hung them for the court because the court attempted to take away something in the first place the Constitution gave you the right to do. That's not a win. So it's a sad state of affairs that we currently live in. You saw this in the D.C. versus Heller case last August, where now we had the court rule 5-4 that the Second Amendment to the Constitution is constitutional. Well, that's Lottie freaking da, to quote the great prophet Chris Farley. What would have happened had the court ruled the Second Amendment wasn't constitutional? Is hand over your guns? Is that how that works? I mean, we're at a point now where nothing will change at all until we stand up to judges, stand up to the judiciary, and the way you do that is you get the other two branches to do their jobs. Here in Iowa, there's only one branch that is constitutionally prescribed and enumerated with the power to make laws. And guess what branch it's not? The court. That would be the legislature. The Constitution of the state of Iowa says, and I quote, "All political power is inherent in the people of Iowa," unquote. Is that what we currently see in the way that we govern ourselves? No. So, on one hand, you can blame the judges, and people throw out terms like judicial tyranny, or one of my favorites is judicial despotism, and those things may be true, but after a while you stop blaming the culprits and you start looking at their collaborators, John. And when the other two branches of the government won't do what the Constitution and the rule of law call for them to do, then that's where the real problem is. If you read Federalist 78, Alexander Hamilton writing about, the Federalist Papers are sort of the Cliff's Notes to the Constitution by the men who wrote it, basically. And in Federalist 78, Alexander Hamilton writes that you'll notice the court doesn't have the power of the purse or the power of the sword, meaning it's the weakest of the three branches. What does that mean? Well, it means two things. Number one, if you went to public school and they told you we have three equal branches of government, they lied. That's not true. That's not what we have. Number two, if you look at any system of government, I don't care if it's a monarchy, a dictatorship, or a democracy, whoever can raise money and raise an army, that's who has the power. When our founders gave those enumerated powers to two branches of government, which two branches did they give it to? The executive and the legislative. Why? Because they didn't want those powers to go to the branch that wasn't directly and at all times under the scrutiny of the voters and the American people. And that's what we have now. We're nullifying elections, we nullify state amendments, we nullify ballot initiatives, and we're just legislating our own morality from the bench. If you want to legislate morality, you're welcome to do that. Run for the legislature. That's not what we are to do in the courts. And when, no matter how else you want to describe it, when a select few trump the will of the people, that's tyranny by just another name. We no longer have a republic here in this country. We live under an oligarchy. And it's time for the American people to make their legislators and their executives, those that are directly at the accountability of them as the voters, do their jobs. If we do nothing else in this state next year, you have to elect a governor that's going to do his job and take the oath of office seriously, and that is to uphold the Constitution of the state of Iowa, not the opinions of judges, which by the Constitution's own wording are not allowed to trump statutes passed by legislators and signed into law by the courts. Anybody, including this joke of a history teacher up the street here, Lieutenant Governor Chet Culver, ought to know, if you've ever seen Ray Charles narrate Schoolhouse Rock, how a bill is made, right? You ever seen that? What happens? It goes to the legislature, they pass it, it goes to the president or the executive, he signs it, and it's the law. We don't need the court's Inspector 12 seal of approval.